Yes, I was muted. Ah,
Oh my goodness.
Zoom 101, turn your mic on.
Okay. Okay, guys. Now all of my lovely students are here.
Great.
And could you briefly introduce yourself and then we'll get started?
Sure, you want me to introduce myself and then just go right into it?
Yes.
Okay, I can do that. So I'm Coulter Reed. I'd like to thank Jing first off for the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today. When I first started blogging 10 years ago, 10 years ago this month, and kind of my first audience that I was writing for was myself when I was in college. What were the sort of things that I wished I would have figured out sooner? So to get to speak to a college class today, I'm just delighted. I hope that I am worth your time, and I hope that you take something valuable out of this. I graduated from the University of Wyoming in 2000. I started college with enough credits that I'd earned in high school that I had a freshman semester, I had a sophomore semester, I had a junior year, and then I had 3 senior years. I took 5 years to get a 4-year degree, but I graduated with a double major. In fact, if I had wanted to take 3 more humanities credits, I could have actually gotten 2 bachelor's degrees in those 5 years, but literally one of the humanities classes I would have had to have taken was on pottery. And that was where I drew the line and said, nope, no more. Let's just graduate. I did change my major 5 times in the first 2 years of college. I started off majoring in electrical engineering with the signal processing option. I was going to go to work for Harman Kardon or JBL, Bose, somebody, and do high-end stereo systems for them. And then I started college, started studying engineering, and the very first class, I was introduced to the fast Fourier transform, which is some very ugly math, if you're not familiar with it. And so I said, nope, I'm just going to go straight double E. I dropped the emphasis, so went straight double E. Second semester, I took my first digital electronics class and thought, oh, this is great, this is fun. The math here is a lot easier, it's all ones and zeros. So I switched, so I was now double E with the digital electronics option. And then starting my second year, that was also the semester I had my first programming class. I learned to program when I was 8, so I was familiar with the concepts, but this was my first collegiate programming class. It was on Pascal. It's the only time I have ever used Pascal. Taught myself more over the summer, started taking more programming classes in my second year of college, and thought, okay, this is fun. I'm not going to stop. So I'm easily going to pick up a computer science minor. And then towards the end of that second year, I looked at things and realized I've already earned a computer science minor, and if I keep going, I could get a dual major. So it's 1 degree. It is both a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering with a digital electronics option, and it is a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. The 2 programs were done by different colleges at the time. That's why there were all the extra humanities classes. And we'll talk about one of my humanities classes in a few minutes. But we're going to talk today about marathoning versus sprinting, sort of the two different ways of looking at productivity. And there's a little bit of a tension here because when you're running a marathon, yeah, you need to keep going, absolutely. And if you're trying to win, you're trying to keep going with a very high pace. You know, you want to run quickly. But we can only run so fast and for so long. And what eventually happens is if we settle into this nice steady flow where we find our pace, then we can keep going for a long time. I mean, 26.2 miles, that is phenomenal. My hat is off to anyone who can run for that long. My win right now is to go get on the treadmill for 5 minutes. And that's my goal right now, just to develop the habit of getting to the gym, getting on the treadmill, starting cardio, and it's a 5-minute win. And then I'll gradually work on increasing that. But for me right now, that's the pace that I'm able to set. There are other runners who are more used to this, Jing, who can go out there and they can bust out 26.2 miles like it's nothing. The problem here comes down to production versus production capability. Because once you find that limit of what you're capable of, that's what's sustainable. If you try, you can go beyond that for brief periods, but then you have to pull back and rest and renew yourself and then go back to your normal pace. And that normal pace you have will change over time, just as your circumstances change. There was a farmer once who had a hen that laid golden eggs. And every day, this hen would lay one golden egg. And the farmer and his wife thought, hey, this is amazing. You know, there must be a lot of gold up in this chicken. And that's what's coming out every day. And so they thought, well, why just get one egg every day? Let's go in there, let's kill the chicken, get all this gold out. Just imagine how great life would be. And so they killed the chicken, they opened it up, and found that inside, it was just like any other chicken. But because they had killed it, they no longer had their chicken that laid golden eggs. And so they lost that steady production capacity of getting one golden egg every day. I mean, you want to give me a golden egg every day, I'll take it. I mean, that's worth something right there. But they tried to get it all at once, and it wasn't sustainable. They found it wasn't sustainable. And so they killed the hen that laid the golden eggs. You know, that's an expression. We talked about that. And this goes back to the industrial age mindset of what productivity looks like. So during the industrial age, there was this mindset that if your factory can produce, say, 100 widgets in an hour, then the way that you create more widgets and increase your profitability is you work longer hours. Okay, you work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, whatever you can squeeze out of your people, then that's what you need to do in order to build as many widgets as you can, in order to be as productive as possible. And this is true for employers, this isn't true for you individually, because you're your own boss at the end of the day. You decide what you're going to do. And it was not sustainable. It was very difficult working conditions. Nobody wants to go into a factory for 12, 14-hour shifts, go home exhausted, fall into bed. You have no time for anything else in your life. You can do that for brief periods, but only briefly. And then you have to pull back and reset and go to a sustainable pace. Now, Henry Ford. A lot of people, if you ask Henry Ford who Henry Ford was, they'll say, oh, he was the guy that invented the car. And he didn't. He did not invent the car. Somebody else invented the car. But what Henry Ford figured out how to do was how to make a car affordable so that everybody could buy one. Some people will say, oh, he was the one that invented the assembly line. Okay, before that, the idea was that you would get people together and you would bring materials in, and these people would build an entire car at once, which means each worker had to be trained on how to build an entire car, and you had to bring in parts from everywhere. And it was a very inefficient way of doing it. Somebody else came up with the idea of an assembly line, but Henry Ford realized, oh, I can do this not just for small, simple things, but I can also do this for something as large and complicated as an automobile. And so he built his factory so that you had parts go in one end, and you had an assembly line, and you had highly skilled workers who were trained on specific tasks. They were specializing now. And at the other end of the factory came finished automobiles. And yes, that's true. The assembly line was a huge revolution. But the thing to me that Henry Ford really did was he changed the industry. He changed the way we think about work. He normalized the 8-hour workday. Okay, no more of these 10, 12, 14-hour shifts, just 8 hours. Because he knew that was not a linear relationship between the effort that you put in and the results that you get out. Because we get tired if we've been working too long, if we've been pushing too hard. We start making mistakes. Okay, mistakes mean that we get injured. And now if you have this highly specialized worker who can't work because they're injured, you have to bring somebody else in to replace them. And they're not as specialized. They don't know the job. And so you're going to slow down. It's going to increase your costs because you have to, because if you make a mistake and drill a part in the wrong place, well, that part's useless anymore. You have to throw it out. You have to use 2 parts now to build the car. That increases your costs. Personally, this means that you're just working harder than you need to be in order to get the results that you're after. And you get to a point where you start creating anti-work. You start actually producing, you start getting negative results over time. That line that goes up, my video's mirrored, the line that starts going up starts to go back down. And the more hours that you put in, you actually start getting worse off. Okay? There have been a lot of studies done trying to find that sweet spot in the middle where we where we peak. What is the maximum output that we can get in a week, in a day? This is kind of a week view that I've drawn. So that line is somewhere right around the 45-hour mark. Now, it depends on what your industry is, what your job is, but on average, it's about 45 hours. Okay, if you have a 40-hour job, and you put in an hour of overtime, you're getting a little bit more work done. But Henry Ford realized that the incremental gain that he was receiving was not much. I mean, look at how shallow that curve is. You're getting more at 9 hours, but just a little bit more than what you were getting at 8 hours. And so it was actually more useful to him to be able to offer to his employees just an 8-hour day. Come work for me. You're going to have 8 hours. It's just an 8-hour shift. You can go home, be with your family, do other things, and I'm going to give you the weekends off. And he was a heretic. People thought you're going to fail. You're never going to succeed. But he understood what the long term was. He knew that if he could slow down and have his employees work at a more sustainable pace, it was going to be better for him in the long run. It was going to be better for them in the long run. Okay, there was no, what was good for his employees was good for him. Their interests were aligned. And this was revolutionary thinking at the time. Everyone told him he was going to fail. Now, the interesting thing about this curve, a couple of things I want to point out. The maximum is right around a 9-hour day. After that, you start getting tired, you slow down, you start making mistakes, you start creating anti-work. If you go back to the industrial age 12-hour day, for those extra 3 hours that you're working, you're only getting out about an extra half hour of productive output. It's not worth your time at that point. Go home, do something else. And that's for a single 12-hour day in isolation. When you start packing them in every day, you put in like a 60-hour week, the amount of productive effort that you have at the end of the week, after you account for all of the mistakes that you make and the things you have to do over again, and the snarky responses that you give to somebody and that damage a relationship, that now you have to repair that relationship, you're not actually creating any more output for yourself than someone who's put in 30 hours a week. You're putting in twice the time. You're not any more productive. You're just busier and you're more stressed. And so the more interesting thing, I like trying to find the one on the left, because that's the one where you start to be more sustainable. So around the same time that Henry Ford was getting Ford Motor Company off the ground, there was an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. And he noticed that in his garden, 80% of the peas that grew were grown by just 20% of the plants. And he started looking around and seeing this principle just all over the place. 80% of the results come from just 20% of your efforts. And in order to go, and it's that other 80%, the other 80% of your time just gives you another 20% of output. And sometimes that's just not worth it. Sometimes it is. If you're a surgeon, you're operating on me, yes, I want you to put in the full time. Put in 100%, give me 100%. Absolutely. But for a lot of things, it's just not worth it. Okay, one of my humanities classes that I had was musical appreciation or something. It was one of those broad appeal classes that a lot of, that was mainly taken by non-music majors, but people from other colleges who just had to have a humanities credit. And it was held in the Fine Arts building, which was at the far end of campus. It was a solid half-hour walk to get there. I hated that walk because of what it meant, because I had to, just the buffer that I had to leave around it. But I decided early on that I did not need to get an A in that class. If I wanted to, I could have. But nobody was going to care if I got an A in music appreciation. And so rather than, when it came time to study, I chose not to worry about studying for that class. Instead, I would put my efforts into the other classes that I had. The ones that were in my major, the ones that were actually going to matter for me. So this is the 80-20 rule. This is the first mindset that I want to share with you. I'm going to share about 5 or 6 mindsets, just my go-to tools for things that help me keep productivity in check. Because it's very easy to go, to just go after perfection in everything, and it can start sucking up your time. It's so easy to get lost chasing perfection when so often we're better off just going for good enough. So the 80-20 rule, just go for good enough. It's often better. Second of all, not every task is created equal. Some tasks are going to have more of an impact on our lives than other tasks. And if you're familiar with ABC prioritization of tasks, that's kind of what this reflects. You have the A tasks, which are the critical tasks. These are the ones that are going to make a difference and are really going to move the needle. These are the tasks that make sure that you're not just living the same day over and over again, but you're actually moving forward. You've got the B tasks, which, you need to get to them. You expect to get them done, but towards the end of the day, you're not going to move heaven and earth in order to make sure that you get them done. They can wait if necessary. And then you've got your C tasks, which, maybe you'll get to them, maybe not. If you don't, no big deal. You haven't actually committed to them, but they're there if you actually have the time. If you get blocked on other stuff, then there's something that you can look at. So remember that not all tasks are created equal, and sometimes you need to give more attention to one task than another, and that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to work. Third tool, look at which quadrant it's in. When Dwight Eisenhower was the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in Europe during World War II, he made the observation that what is urgent is not always important, and what is important is not always urgent. And so he came up with, or somebody put this into a 2x2 matrix, where you've got the things that are things that are urgent and things that are important. Quadrant 1 is the quadrant of putting out fires. These are crises that have broken out. Something has come up and you need to deal with it, and you need to deal with it now. Quadrant 2 is quality preparation. This is where you've got time to work on things and to prepare for what's coming. If you're working on a report at the last minute, the night before it's due, then you're in scramble mode. You're in quadrant 1. You're staying up as long as it takes to get that done, and you're probably not going to do as good of a job as if you're working on it when you still got 2 weeks to work on it, to revise it, to edit it, to see what works, what doesn't. You have more options so that you can just play around and explore, do different things. Quadrant 3, these are the things that are important, or not important, but urgent. These need to be happening. The phone, you got to answer the phone. If that's your job to answer the phone. I try to ignore the phone as much as possible. But laundry, you got to do laundry. It just needs to be done. Gravel, it's there. We need to do it, but it takes up time. And quadrant 4 is the quadrant of escape. Just like, no, we're overwhelmed. We can't deal with the pressure anymore, and so we take a step back, and we just start goofing off, slacking, and not getting anything productive done. Now, when you need more time, this you kind of work your way back up the ladder. The first place to reclaim time is in quadrant 4. You just stop it. Really, that's what it comes down to. The better, rest is in quadrant 2. Rest and renewal; those are important. Ongoing, self-care is in quadrant 2. Self-care is like breathing. You need to do it. You can hold your breath for a little while, but not very long. You can get away with it for short periods, but the longer you go without it, the more you need it. And if you put yourself in a situation where you can't, you're not going to last long. So quadrant 4, where you're just goofing off, that's the first place to look for time that you can reclaim. Quadrant 3 is the next. Sometimes you can just ignore it because it's not that important. So maybe it doesn't matter if it gets done, and you can just eliminate it. You can find ways to automate things. Automation can be highly technical. I have buttons here on my desk that turn lights on and off rather than having to go around and turn them off individually. It's a very simple form of technical automation. Automation can be as simple as just having a checklist of the steps you need to go through for something. That's automation. Automation is not fancy and technical, just anything that helps you get a repeatable result more quickly. Quadrant 2, sadly, Quadrant 2 is where we tend to cut time next. Because Quadrant 2, you don't have the immediate deadlines. Quadrant 1 does. It's the fires, it's screaming. And the problem is we get so busy running around putting out fires that we never take the chance to stop back and ask ourselves why so many fires are breaking out in the first place. Because the more time you can spend working in Quadrant 2, the less time you spend in Quadrant 1. It's not going to go to 0. Things happen, fires break out. But the more preparation you can do, the better, the less time you'll spend in Quadrant 1, and the more prepared you'll be for when you get there. Okay. Tool number 4, the 10-10-10 rule. This was something that Susie Welch wrote in her book by the same name, 10-10-10. Shortly after my wife and I welcomed our first child, my in-laws invited us over to watch the Super Bowl with them. And we said, great, love to. What time do you want us to come over? Oh, just come over, just be here for kickoff. Okay, great. So check the schedule, Google the schedule. What time does the Super Bowl start? And 4 p.m. Great. Okay, so we got home from church. We had time. Okay, we can feed the baby, put the baby down for a nap. I can take a nap. This will be great. We'll go over for 4 o'clock. Yeah, we got over there for, like 3:40. We were early for a change. And my mother-in-law opens the door and says, oh, there you are. I was about to call and wonder where you were. So, well, what? We're here. We're early. Yeah, in my new father brain had not realized that, 4 o'clock p.m. was Eastern time, not California time. So we showed up for the Super Bowl at halftime. Now, I had a choice to make here in how I was going to respond to that. I could either fly off the handle and be frustrated and be in a bad mood because we missed the first half of the Super Bowl. I mean, that's where the good commercials are. And this might have been a game that the Broncos were playing. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check. But I had just read 10-10-10 by Susie Welch, and so I thought, okay, first off, let's think about this. What is going to happen? How is this going to affect me in the next 10 minutes? I'm either going to be stomping around angry, and my wife and mother-in-law are going to be walking on eggshells a little bit, or I can roll with it, and we have a laugh and go on and enjoy the second half of the game. All right? 10 hours from now, how is this going to affect me? Well, it's really not. I mean, I'll know, the game will be over. I can watch the highlights. I can go online and watch see all the good commercials. 10 hours from now, it really doesn't make a difference. 10 months from now, it really doesn't make a difference. And I actually took this one step further and asked myself, okay, 10 years from now, what kind of a reputation do I want to have? Do I want to have a reputation as someone who flies off the handle when things don't go my way? Or do I want a reputation for rolling with it? It was a tool that helped me step back and realize that, no, I don't need to, start damaging relationships with a poor response. I can choose a better response of just rolling with it. Tool 5. Again, along the same thing of don't make a big deal out of little things. Your prefrontal cortex is a highly advanced and developed part of your brain. This is where you do your high-level thinking. This is where you come up with great ideas. Like, I want to go to college. I want to major in botany. I want to go skydiving. I want to go bungee jumping. I want to try a new flavor of pizza. And then there is this other, and then right back here at the back of your brain, right where your head meets your neck, is the basal ganglia. Neurologists call this the lizard brain because that's how developed a lizard's brain is. And your basal ganglia has one job. Its job is to keep you alive. And everything it does is geared around keeping you alive. And so your prefrontal cortex comes up with an idea of, I want to go bungee jumping. And your basal ganglia says, okay, let's think about this. Cord might break, we might fall, it could kill us, let's not do that. Okay, I want to go to college, I want to do pre-med. Okay, let's think about this. It's going to be hard. We might fail. Failure's not good, failure might kill us. because your basal ganglia is not good at distinguishing between different types of threats. A threat is a threat, whether it's physical or emotional or social. It's a threat. Feel bads. It wants to avoid the feel bads. And so, nope, it's hard. Let's not do this. It's scary. Let's not do this. Like, oh, let's try this. Let's try this pizza. I'm like, I don't know. That's got pickles on it. I'm not used to pickles on a pizza. They might kill us. Let's stick to pepperoni. Okay. But the trick is your basal ganglia operates on about a 5-second delay. Your prefrontal cortex has an idea, and you've got 5 seconds to act on that idea before your basal ganglia says, well, nope, this might kill us, and starts to put on the brakes. And so you have the idea. If you want to do something about it, just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do something. Because what happens at the end of a countdown? There is a giant release of energy, and things are put into motion. You don't have to complete the task in 5 seconds, but you can put it in motion. Like if you want to go bungee, if you have the idea to go bungee jumping, you're not going to jump off of something safely in the next 5 seconds. But you can say, hey, what if we went bungee jumping? Would that be fun? Or you can fill out the form to say, hey, I'd like to make a reservation to go bungee jumping. Or you can just put things in motion. Pick up the phone and place the call and say, yeah, I'd like to order a large Cuban pizza. Just put things in motion. Counting down, your basal ganglia is not used to things counting down. You don't do that often. And so it's confused. It doesn't know what's happening. And so it just goes with it. Well, I've never died from counting backwards before, so sure, I'll go with it. Oh, look, we're doing something. This isn't killing me. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So the 5-second rule. 5 seconds to count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then jump into action. And so now let's talk about sprinting. Because there are times where you need to kick it into gear and move a little bit faster. And it might not be real comfortable, but it's only for a brief period, and then it will end. So how do you keep your speed up? And yes, this is a little paradoxical. Marathoning is how do you sustain, how do you keep a nice sustainable pace? Sprinting is how do you keep your speed up? That's absolutely paradoxical. It's not a little paradoxical, it's a lot of paradoxical. So let me tell you about my busiest semester at college. I would get up, 6, 7 a.m. I would be over on campus at 8 a.m. And for 8 to 12, I had class. If I had a break in between, I'd just find someplace I could do homework. 12 o'clock, I went home for lunch. I lived 2 blocks off campus, just walked it. I went home, had lunch. 1 o'clock, I was back at the college for the afternoon. I had classes, I had lectures, I had labs, I had work. I worked for the college, and I would do homework from 1 to 5. 5 o'clock, I went home, and I watched The Simpsons, Seinfeld, and Frasier while I had dinner. 7 o'clock, I went back over to the college, and I would work, I would do homework, study groups. But I was back at the college from 7 until 10 when they shut it down and kicked you out. And Monday through Friday, that was what I did. Now Friday, I might have switched gears and gone home a little bit earlier because it's Friday night. But Saturday and Sunday, I did not do work. I did not do homework. I didn't study. I did other things. I slept in. We watched football games. We had movie marathons. We ran down to Fort Collins for the weekend. Just having fun, switching gears, putting it behind. Because having those strict boundaries of, okay, I'm going to go into class, I'm going to go to the college, and I'm going to focus for this block of time, but then I'm going to go home and switch gears and not worry about it. That was what helped to make it sustainable. When you're in college, you have an incredible amount of flexibility over your schedule. I mean, yes, there are certain classes you have to take, but you can even build around that. One of my roommates arranged his schedule so that all of his classes were on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he could go ski. That was how he wanted to optimize his schedule. So, cool, great. One of my wife's friends did not like getting up in the morning, and so all of his classes were in the afternoon. And he had class starting at like 1 o'clock. The afternoon, the evening, he had class, did homework until like 3 a.m. He fell into bed, woke up at 10, 11 the next day, did it over again. He shifted his schedule back. Nobody cares if you take 2 hours, 3 hours for lunch to go take off and go take a nap, go play games. Nobody cares. As you get into the workplace, then that gets a little more tricky, how to do it. But there are still things that you can do that. When you're designing what your week should look, what you want your week to look like, just kind of sketch it out once. When do you want to be doing the intense work? When do you want to be doing fun things? How often do you want to switch back and forth? Think about the different areas of responsibility that you have in your life and make sure that each one of those areas is going to have its share of you, that it's going to get the time that it needs. That's one of the ways that you make sure that you can stay in quadrant 2 and not get sucked into quadrant 1 so much. And by making sure that you have time in there for proper rest and recreation, then that helps reduce the likelihood that you're going to withdraw and just start to flee into quadrant 4 and just completely wasting time. So some of the things to think about as you're planning your week are, first off, what are the external commitments that I have? When do I have to be in class? When have I told my study group that I'm going to get together with them? Date night. When does my SO expect me to be with them? These are the things to think about first, because if you have made a commitment to somebody else, you need to honor that commitment. One of those commitments you need to make is to yourself. Self-care. Take proper care of yourself. Find blocks in your schedule, ideally 3-hour blocks, if not 3, 2, or whatever you can manage. Blocks for deep work where you can just focus and go deep on something. Get into the mindset of whatever you're working on, because so you don't have to switch contexts a whole lot. But let yourself get in. The other thing that studies have shown about that arc graph that shows diminishing returns at the end is it's not a purely linear start. It actually starts off sublinear because you have to context switch and get into the mode of it. There was a study at UC Davis a couple years ago that showed that when you get interrupted by somebody stopping into your office to talk to you, it takes you 25 minutes to remember what you were doing and get back up to speed on it. So find time where you can be uninterrupted and do the deep work that is going to help you achieve your results faster. I like scheduling a breakout block. This is an idea that I got from the 12-week year. It's based on the name of the author. But the idea behind a breakout block is it's like a 3-hour block in the middle of your week where you just go do something that is completely not work related. In college, it's very easy to do this. When you have a 9-to-5 job, it's not as easy. But I realized that, if I tell work that, I'm going to take a 2-hour lunch today, they really don't care. And so Wednesdays at 12 o'clock, I usually have a golf lesson. Sometimes it's a 2-hour lesson because I'll actually go out and do an on-course lesson and finish the 9 holes. And then the other thing to look for are gravel beds. Gravel beds are, gravel's not the big rocks that make a difference. They're the small rocks, the little things in quadrant 3 that you need to do. They tend to be dinky little things that only take like 5 minutes, maybe. And if you can find a way to concentrate those tasks into a dedicated time slot where that's all you're doing, then it gets the gravel out of the way so that it's not breaking up your deep work blocks or your external commitments. I had 2 classes once back to back. They were half an hour apart, but it only took me 30 seconds to walk from one classroom to the other one. I would love to say that I sat down and pulled out a laptop and was doing something productive during that time, but honestly, this was between my 8 a.m. class and a 9:30 class, and so most of the time I just went and found a comfy chair someplace in a quiet corner and took a nap because I hadn't gotten enough sleep the night before. If I had had a smartphone back then, I could have gotten so much done during that during little breaks like that, answering things. My car was in the shop for the last week and a half. And so I've taken a lot of Ubers places. And one of the things I realized halfway through was that I can pull out my phone and actually be doing something. I can answer emails. I can respond to texts that I haven't responded to yet. I can go shopping on Amazon and order, we just had to replace our bird feeder because the rats chewed a hole in it. I can do these things while somebody else is driving. This is great. It costs too much for me to do this all the time, but hey, opportunity strikes. Daily planning. again, first thing to think about is what are the commitments that you've made to both yourself and to others. Keep the time for self-care, and also honor the commitments you've made to others. Pick 3 big tasks. Those 8 tasks that are going to make a difference. Pick 3 of them. What are you going to get done today? Then pick some expected tasks, some maybe tasks, depending on how much you have time for. Because the more time you've committed to others, that means you have less time to do tasks. Whether you're in a meeting or it's a task, it's all time. And so you need to make sure you're not trying to get too much done. I like to start the day by picking 3 quick wins. These are things that need to be done. They're usually gravel. Sometimes they're 8 tasks, but just 3 tasks that I can get in and just get it done. Just knock them out, boom, 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 build some momentum for the day, build some confidence, say, hey, I can do this. I'm having a productive day. My plan for the day is working. Look at all this stuff I'm getting done. And now I can move on. The thing that's going to keep you going when the going gets tough is remembering why you're doing it. Peter Drucker spoke of a man who met 3 stonecutters as he was walking down the highway. And he asked the first stonecutter, what are you doing? And the stonecutter looked at him and said, I'm cutting stone. Oh, okay, cool, great. He got to the second stonecutter and asked him what he was doing. And he said, I am cutting the best stone in the country. Okay, good job. It looks excellent. Great. He asked the third stonecutter what he was doing. And the stonecutter kind of looked out in the distance and answered, I am helping to build a cathedral. Now, all of these answers are perfectly valid. This is what I'm doing now. I'm good at what I do, and this is how what I'm doing fits into the bigger picture. But only one of those is going to has the emotional aspect to it that can sustain you when the going gets tough. Florence Chadwick was the first woman to swim the Catalina Channel. It is 26.2 miles from the California coast out to Catalina Island. Now, running a marathon is impressive enough, but can you imagine running that marathon with your arms? With 70-degree water pulling you back, waves beating against you? That's unreal. I can't even imagine that. But she did it. She didn't do it on her first attempt. On her first attempt, she got 25 miles across. She was within a mile of the shore, but she was swimming into a thick fog. And so when she got there, she couldn't see how close she was. She didn't have a sight of that end that she was striving for. She got tired and she tapped out. She got into the boat that was accompanying her, and then the fog lifted and she saw just how close she had come. 2 months later, she tried it again. And this time she was able to see the coast. She was able to keep that end in mind and stay focused on her objective. And she did it. Now, some of you are going to ask, well, what happens if I fall? I'm running along. Yeah, we fall. We get banged up. We get bruised up. Every time my kids fall, it takes 4 or 5 Band-Aids to make things better. But let's take a look at a race from 2015. Okay, let's talk about Heather Dorniden for just a minute. Heather competed for Minnesota. She was an indoor sprinter, and we're going to watch the last lap of the women's 600-meter race. Okay, it's 3 times around a 200-meter track. This is at the end of the second lap. Dorniden is number 170. She's going to be on the left.
Her this weekend, and she's just coming by Fondor now in the home stretch, heading into the bell lap. Dorniden went down.
Whoa. Dorniden falling down, gets up quickly, but that's going to cost her. Lucky she wasn't injured.
Her teammate just went to the front, though, so they may be able to recover from that. And Dorniden is flying down the backstretch.
She is catching up.
She is going to catch Fondor, and she may catch the leaders.
Wow.
But she's got fun.
This is a gutsy effort by Dorniden. Can she pull it off? She's moved into third. Dorniden coming down the stretch from the outside.
On the end of the second lap, she falls down. As far as I can tell, she lost about 4 seconds. Everybody else got a 4-second lead on her. She picks herself back up. She continues the race. She closes the gap and comes in first. She won by 0.04 of a second. Now let me ask you this. If she hadn't fallen, would she have beaten everybody else with those 4 seconds? No. She would have, as long as she was ahead of the gal in second place, she was good. But it was because she fell that she dug deep and found those extra 4 seconds that were in her all along. It was the adversity and the challenge that brought it out of her. Okay? The race is long, but at the end, you're only running against yourself. Don't compare yourself against others. It's too easy to get that wrong. We compare ourselves at our worst against others at their best because they're putting on a polished appearance, and we're seeing what they want us to see. At the end, the race is long, and you're only competing against yourself. Find out what your pace is. Know how hard you can push yourself. Know when you need to step back and ease up and take a little bit better care of yourself. Thank you. I went a little bit long, Gene, but I'm not up against anything, so I'm happy to stick around and answer questions.
Hi, I'm Ian.
Hi, Ian.
I'm an undergraduate at Berkeley, and thank you for the lecture. I thought that was great.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask, especially in regards to like the 4 quadrants, whether you think it's good to if that's like a mental thing that you kind of do automatically, or maybe it's better to write it down, like at the beginning of your week or at the beginning of your day, or what you do personally. I was curious about the process of how to implement that into your life.
Okay, so I have done planning that was kind of based all around what the quadrants were. Think of, okay, what's everything I want to get done this week, and for each one of those tasks, which quadrant does this fall into, and use that as a planning tool. I didn't do that for very long. I didn't find it very effective. It's more, at this point, it's become just kind of instinctive. How did I make this instinctive? I think one tip I can give for this is something that I do very consciously. Anytime I find myself in quadrant 1, putting out a fire, I do step back and say, okay, how can I solve this problem, not just now, but how can I solve this so that I never have to solve this problem again? And maybe it's changing a process at work, figuring out what fell down. Okay, how can we improve our processes so that this doesn't happen again? Or maybe it's I need to make sure that I'm taking better care of myself or better care of my car, so that I'm doing proper maintenance on things before things break down. Things like that. So that's the takeaway I would give you. Whenever you have to solve a problem in quadrant 1, don't just solve it once, but figure out how to solve it for all the future times so you never have to go back. The incremental time that it takes usually is not that much, but the tasks that gives you to fix it, and they're quadrant 2 tasks that will help you stay out of quadrant 1.
Hello, my name's Will.
Hi, Will.
I feel like a lot of what you lectured about today really made me think about how I put this subconsciously into my life, because I've felt these similar kind of ways to organize your life, but I never put a model to it or a perspective to it. I think this week I've been putting out too many fires, and then one of them just the whole city burned down. So
that happens.
And I had a moment where I'm working on a research project, and when the city burned down for the research project, I thought, okay, I've compromised everything as a researcher, and I've compromised my whole project. And so without knowing about 10-10-10, I did have a 10-10-10 moment of okay, how do I feel right now? How will I feel tomorrow? And in the grand scheme of things, is this going to be significant on how I feel? And so I don't really have a question as much, but I'm just saying thank you for adding that perspective and like helping us kind of utilize these toolkits to like think about things from a different way, because I feel like when you're in college, things can feel so narrow and you feel like things are easily like, okay, I'm never getting over this, can't fix this, too much going on.
It's the end of the world. We're never going to rebuild this city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for the lecture.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lily. I'm also an undergrad.
Hi.
Hi, I had a question about how would you like advise someone who's, I guess, burnt out even though they have stepped in quadrant 4, especially like in relation to research, like there's too much information, there's too much going on, and maybe the city also did burn down, and when you take a step back, it feels like the motivation isn't gonna come back.
Okay. So the question is basically, how do you get out of quadrant 4 when that's the only place you want to be?
Well, I feel like that's where I was backed into.
We flee to quadrant 4 for a reason, and it's usually because we get overwhelmed. We don't feel like we're up to the challenge. The city burns down. That's huge. It takes a lot of work to rebuild a city. And so one of the things you have to ask yourself is, okay, how can I make this easy? Don't overcomplicate things. I can usually identify like 1 or 2 specific things that I'm stuck on. It's kind of like creating a log jam that I just can't get past. And if I can just find a way to break through that, and it's a task that I've just been putting off, and what is the easiest thing that I can do to make progress on this? I just want to move it forward. That might be replying to an email, and asking a question. You need more information before you have, before you can make a decision. It might be like emailing your advisor to say, hey, this is what happened. What do you think the options are? These are the options I can think of. Do you see any other options? Just find something that you can take one step. Just one. What's the simplest thing you can do to make progress on something? Now, sometimes the city burns down, and you'll realize I didn't want to be in that city anyway. It's a chance to reevaluate things. It sucks to end on a failure like that. My personality is, no, I want to rebuild the city before I walk away and leave it. But sometimes we do find that, nope, this is not something that I wanted to be a part of. And we need to be willing to walk away from it. One of my wife's friends wanted to be a doctor. She was in pre-med up until the day that the teacher said, okay, we're going to practice drawing blood today. Pick a partner. You're going to draw each other's blood. And she said, nope. That was the day she realized she didn't really want to be a doctor. She liked the idea of being a doctor, but she didn't want to actually be a doctor.
Do you have tips for people who have managed to get by and do well in the sort of letting fires build up and then putting them out and then letting them build up and then putting them out, and so have come to sort of get used to that? Because I know you were saying, like, with the example you gave of college, you like taught yourself how to be like focused on the weekdays and then you could take the weekends off. But for some of us, for me at least, I'm sort of the getting focused on the weekdays part is the challenge more so than like implementing these strategies. And I've been able to sort of get by on doing it, but it is physically exhausting and like emotionally draining. Do you have any advice to basically sort of like change how I sort of interface with the world in that way?
So do you feel like you're doing your best work when you do it that way?
I do good work. I do work I'm proud of. It's not like I'm doing work that is like unsatisfying to me, and it's not like I'm getting back advice that's like you need to be doing. Like I'm proud of the work that I do, but it's less the quality of the work and more the quality of like my mental and physical well-being. Okay, so like the stress from it because you're doing things at the last minute. Exactly.
Okay. So one thing you can do is get accountability for it. Accountability is an interesting word. We tend to think of it like, oh, if I don't do this, then you get to hit me or something. But find a group that that you can work with on something, and schedule an appointment earlier, farther in ahead of the deadline, where you're going to get together and work on it. And it might not, if you're not working on the same project together, then just say, hey, let's get together at at 3:00 on Thursday and just all work on whatever we have to work on. Quiet work is it's an interesting thing. There are websites you can sign up for, and they will pair you up with somebody, and you make an appointment with this other person that you don't know, stranger on the internet, that at 3:00 on a Thursday, you're both going to get on a call together. You're going to turn your cameras on, turn the mics off, and you're both going to just work on it. So it's really just looking at your schedule and figuring out how to front load things more. Find ways to spread it out a little bit more. Look at the work that you have to do and just say, okay, what's one thing I can do to move this project forward today? So that I don't have 5 things on Friday. Let's do one thing today, one thing tomorrow, one thing on Wednesday, and then it might not be ideal, and you're doing 3 things on Thursday night, but that's better than doing 5 things on Thursday night.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Coder. Coder also has a blog, so if you have any questions, so can my students contact you by using the blog, the contact. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's take a photo together. Hi, guys. Stay there. Come on, move your hands.
I'll look pretty on camera.
Okay, that's great. Why all of you just standing here? What's wrong with this?
We can't block this stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay. There. Just give me a word. Okay, they're all very. Happy face. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Coder.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak to you.
Thank you. Thanks.